The big New Year's Eve rivalry showdown goes in favor of the Arizona Wildcats as they toppled ASU 69-60 here at Desert Financial Arena. Welcome to the Devil's Digest postgame analysis. My name's Nick Borgia. Alongside me is publisher Hode Urbino. And Hode, I'd argue that we saw a handful of different ASU teams out there on the court tonight. We can look at that first half and the completely lackluster performance. We can look at the start of the second half and how they really came out firing and almost came back. And then the end of that half, it just seemed like they weren't really in it. So I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, Nick, I'll tell you what, it really was just ASU in a nutshell this year. Sometimes it's fun to talk about those halftime deficit comeback wins, but at some point you definitely ask yourself, why is the team coming out so slow out of the gates in the first half to begin with? And sure, against some teams on ASU's schedule, you're able to get away with that. Against the number 5 team in the country in Arizona, you absolutely cannot. And sure, ASU was able to cut down a 13-point halftime deficit to only 2 pretty early in the second half. But like you said, when you're just in that constant comeback mode, you do run out of stamina. Foul problems, obviously, we're for Arizona State. So like I told some folks on text after the game, it wasn't burn the game film type of loss like it was for San Francisco right before Christmas, a 37-point defeat. But this is a game that you can take some positives from. But really more than anything, and hopefully this is a lesson that ASU can really implement for the rest of the Pac-12 schedule. Just play a complete game or a near complete game. Don't dig yourself those holes in the first half. Against a team like Arizona, you're just not going to be able to come back. And there might be some other teams in the conference where you just cannot afford that quote-unquote luxury of trying to come back in the second half. So again, today really was a cruel deja vu, I think, for Arizona State fans.
So we'll start with the offense. I think the biggest glaring statistic is that 3 of 27 from three-point range. It's not going to be enough to get by any Pac-12 team. It just seemed like nobody was really clicking from beyond the arc, and on top of that, they couldn't get to the line when they were attacking the paint.
Yeah, I think U of A was just really content with their 2 bigs, Balo and Tubelis, to really pack the paint and dare Arizona State to beat them from outside. And sometimes you think, as an opponent like Arizona coming into Tempe, and maybe the players are just juiced up with a 12,000 plus in attendance here, and you just really chucking threes just unconsciously sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong, Nick. I mean, there definitely were some open looks. I don't think shot selection was really horrible, as a 3 from 27 stat would suggest. But against Arizona, that's a team that you just don't have a whole lot of margin for error. So if a team like the Wildcats is daring the Sun Devils to shoot threes, and you're just not even coming close to knocking them at even a somewhat acceptable rate, it's definitely going to be a long afternoon. And look, I mean, I know you can talk about officiating really not going Arizona State's way. I think there were minus 18 in the free throw attempt disparity, and ASU really didn't shoot all that well from the free throw line to begin with. But ultimately, you really have to make your own luck and really, I guess, force the refs to make that calls. If you're chucking threes, you're not going to get calls from the refs on the offensive side. When you're going to force the ball inside, which I guess I know is easier said than done, when you have guys like Balo and Tubelis, and even guys on the bench that are 7 feet tall, coming into the game, it's definitely a hard task. But I felt that when Arizona State did actually go inside, they were getting those calls, especially in the second half, for both those players, Balo and Tubelis, did have 3 fouls each. But when Arizona State was just really resorting to the three-point shooting, you just really let those 2 players off the hook and not creating foul problems for Arizona, because again, Arizona State was really saddled for those foul problems for a good portion of this afternoon.
Well, defensively, ASU didn't have an awful performance by any means, holding Arizona to 69 points, their second lowest mark on the season. Pretty impressive, but when your offense can't make up for that, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think if you're an Arizona State fan and you just want to watch chunks of the highlight reel that Nick is going to produce here later on, then just watch the beginning of the second half, because that was really enjoyable for Arizona State fans to see that swarming defense. The defense have really served them well up until now, delivering an 11-3 record. Arizona shot under 27% for the second half, under 37% for the entire game. So yes, you're absolutely right that Arizona State did do their job on the defensive end. Obviously, much more in the second half than in the first half. They actually opened the second half with a 14-4 run. Did bring down that deficit to only 2 points, but I felt that when they made that run, you saw a lot of highlight dunks on fast breaks. Again, just if you watch the highlight film, you definitely see that portion of just Arizona State playing that trademark defense that has served them so well this season. But it just felt that Arizona State was maybe a little too comfortable with just bringing the deficit almost to I would say a draw, that they just tried again to really gain the lead with the three-point shooting. And again, it wasn't that there was always bad looks involved, but the ball was just not falling down from Arizona State being beyond the arc. And again, even though that their offense was much better in the second half, it definitely was a product of the defense fueling the offense with those fast break points. But once they got into a half-court set, it basically just really was not happening for Arizona State. We talked about the foul trouble. Frankie Collins and Devin Cambridge were saddled with 5 fouls, and did foul out. Des Cambridge had 4. So it really was a matter of, as much as they're trying to play defense with a real high level of intensity, just to not only cut down the deficit but actually gain a lead. It just really was an uphill battle. I mean, U of A did really have a ticker-to-ticker game today, where Arizona State was only able to really tie the game at 4-4 really early in the first half, and really never came that close, aside from that big run in the second half, to even having a comeback. So the defense was good, but it was just a matter that the offense for Arizona State was really not able to support its defense. So yes, I think you can definitely see it as an achievement that a team like U of A, that's averaging just around 90 points a game, only scores 69. 24 points of the 69, Nick, did come from the charity stripe. Again, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on really controversial officiating calls and whatnot, but I feel that ASU really was not able to create their own opportunities at the free throw line on the offensive side. That's why I see such a huge disparity in those numbers. And again, when you have the three-point shot absolutely not falling down for you, you have to make it up somehow on offense. And again, I just feel that ASU was able, maybe with some fast break points, able to generate some offense. But all in all, not a great game offensively for ASU at all. And as I mentioned earlier, against the number 5 team in the country, when your margin of error is that small, you're just not going to get away with that performance.
So with today's loss, ASU falls to 11-3 on the year, but from here on out, it's all Pac-12 conference play. So next up, January 5th, Wazoo comes to town. What does ASU need to fix? What needs to change? Obviously, that three-point shooting is one thing that we can definitely talk about, but it's all Pac-12 play here going on out. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify the point, but obviously Washington State is a team that maybe you can afford more mistakes against, and maybe if Arizona State finds itself again down at halftime, yes, Washington State on paper is a team that you can generate another halftime deficit comeback. But I think for Arizona State, as I mentioned earlier, Nick, just really try to play a more complete game. And the next 2 games are at home. They are very winnable games. I'm not saying going to be easy. Just last night, Washington State lost by 1 point to UCLA. In Pullman. So I think that's definitely a game that does catch ASU's attention for the upcoming contest. But just really to play a more complete game. And I like to think also that with the quality of three-point shooters on this team, Des Cambridge, Devin Cambridge, DJ Horn. I would even throw in Alonzo Goffney in there, Luther Muhammad from time to time. I don't think we're going to see a 3 from 27 performance by the Sun Devils on Thursday or even on Sunday against Washington. And again, if that performance did happen to take place, I think that ASU would be able to overcome, just because the quality of opponent. I mean, again, I hate to oversimplify it, but sometimes it really depends who's the team on the other end of the court that you're actually facing when you talk about what kind of level of mistake-free basketball you can or cannot play, and how that really results in your chances of winning games. And I don't want to jump too ahead, Nick, but if ASU wins the next 2 games at home against Washington Schools, now they're 4-1 in Pac-12 play. That is a mark that I think Bobby Hurley would absolutely accept in the preseason, in terms of starting the first 5 games in the Pac-12 on that note. Again, I know that we're not there yet, but it's definitely a feasible feat for Arizona State to achieve, especially with the next 2 games at home. Today, by the way, was the first home loss for Arizona State. So this is a team that plays very well in Tempe. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but this wasn't a San Francisco loss where there's absolutely no lessons that you can take. It was just a horrible game from start to finish. At least Arizona State did show some life in the second half. Now just go back to the drawing board, try to play, if not 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes in long stretches of the first half, like you did in the second half today against Arizona. And I think ASU will be fine. There's definitely work to be done. I don't think there's really that much work to be done. And again, this is definitely one of the better Arizona State teams we saw under Bobby Hurley. Now they got to prove it the next 2 games against the Washington schools.
All right, so as I said, next game, January 5th, Washington State comes to town. Devil's Digest has got you covered. Keep it locked in on our website. Keep it locked in at DevilsDigest.com. Also drop a follow at Devil's Digest on Twitter. For Hoder Bino and the rest of our Devil's Digest staff, I'm Nick Borgia. We thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.